Hi folks, welcome to another Broken Meeple review, and hopefully you'll find the audio is a bit better on this one because the last couple of videos I accidentally unplugged the microphone when I was doing it, and when I put it back in, I didn't put it back in all the way, so it wasn't fully inserted into the camera, which meant it used the audio off the camera. But with post-editing trickery, I think I was able to get rid of most of the problems and the hiss with regards to amplifying it like crazy, and hopefully none of you even noticed, because I didn't actually put it on the description. So this one and future ones will be back to normal. So this is the second of two community reviews that I've been asked to do. Of course, I will take in requests to see what else I can do during this quarantine period. But first I did Dale of Merchants, which was a really cool deck building game. You know, check out my review for that. And this is the next highest, well actually no, this was technically the highest rated review that was asked for by the community, and that is Kanban, Automotive Revolution, Driver's Edition, whatever. It's the Stronghold version that I'm reviewing here. Now, yes, there is a Kickstarter that's already happened for Kanban EV from Eagle Gryphon Games, where Vital Lacerda, just like always, is doing his big Eagle Gryphon big box games. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Yes, I'm excited as all get out. No, I didn't back it. Cost, postage, all factors in. But yes, I will be like clawing at like the retail stores trying to get at it when it comes out on retail. This is not a review of the EV version. I've yet to even play it. I need to actually read the rules and check it out on Tabletopia at some point actually, so maybe I might get in on some games of that. But for now, this is just what I think of Kanban, the Stronghold edition, in case you're able to still get a copy of it and that's the one you prefer to get, or this will at least give you an overview of what the game is like, because frankly, Kanban EV is very similar, if not nearly identical, apart from some slight streamlining to this one. So you can't hate this one and then like the other one and vice versa. It's just not going to happen. So what is Kanban? Well, Kanban is a Vital Lacerda heavy game. This was like the second one he did, I think, or at least the second one that I came across. You had CO2, and then, yeah, less said about that the better, but then you had this one from Stronghold, Kanban. Now, this is based on efficiency. So you're all employees in a car factory, and you are running this factory in the most efficient manner to score the most victory points, which essentially in thematic terms comes down to grabbing the designs for cars, getting the parts, getting them made, getting them tested, and then administration, like management meetings, hosting what you have done in terms of objectives in order to score points. So objectives might require you to get certain types of cars made, might require you to have a ton of designs, focus on a part, focus on certain testings, you know, all sorts of things, or maybe even just study hard in various textbooks in order to level up your abilities. So it's thematically pretty strong, but the idea is that while you're doing all this, this is done by a kind of semi-worker placement system. It's not quite, oh, I have all my workers and here's all the spaces. No, there's spaces in several departments, but you have one guy, just one guy, and you put them onto a particular department to work there, and you do what's called working in shifts. Those shifts are effectively like your action points, and you spend them in order to do various things in the departments. Now that all sounds well and good, apart from the fact that A, your spaces can be blocked by other players, and there's not many of them, and B, there's also the boss, Sandra. She is your boss, and she wanders from department to department assessing workers as they go by. You can either play her in a nice mode or mean mode. The mean mode is regarded as the best way, but in nice mode she comes along and goes, oh, well done, you've done pretty well, here, have some bonus points. The mean mode, on the other hand, which is more like most bosses I think we can all relate to, is the one who comes by and says, you haven't met the minimum requirement. Lose points.
So you get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
You know, it's basically like you're dodging the boss or trying to not be like the one with the least amount of academic study in the department, whilst also not having met the criteria for a said department, like say, owns several designs. So while you're dodging the boss, you're trying to get the best, like, most efficient manner of assembling cars and testing them whilst scoring victory points along the way. It's done by a variable endgame trigger as to whether a certain amount of management meetings have happened, or a certain amount of things have been, or just Sandra does her rounds about 2 or 3 times. And then at the end, you just total up the points, and of course, the winner, the one with the most.
Of course!
So it sounds quite complicated, and, well, More on that in a minute. Let's get into more detail, starting with duration. This one tends to vary a lot in how long it takes. Kanban is very much, it is a heavy Lacerda game. And a lot of the time that's on this is going to be down to teaching it. More on that in a bit later, but you're talking at least a good 2.5 to 3 hours for this game for typical player counts. You might be able to do it in less with 2 players if you know exactly what you're doing. And that's quite a rarity with this game. You are literally talking that this will be 2 hours at best, and then you're probably 2.5 to 3 hours tops. The box lies to you by saying 60 to 120 minutes. See? Right there on the box, 60 to 120. Wrong! That is a direct, bold-faced lie. I have never seen a game of Kanban finish in 60 minutes. I'm not even sure with 2 players who know what they're doing that is even physically possible. That is seriously wishful thinking. If you play this with new players, or you're having to read through the rulebook again, which will happen, then you're looking at least 2 hours, and more than likely 2.5 to 3. Now, if you are in that dreamscape world where everybody knows what they're doing, you might be able to get it to 90 minutes, 2 hours, but I just cannot see 60 happening at all. There's a lot to set up. You've got like pieces on all the different departments, like the various tracks and the cars and the parts, and like your admin track at the start, the objectives to give out. There's a lot of setup. And there's a fair amount of takedown to go with it. So again, blatantly, the time on the box does not include that, and it certainly isn't including the teaching. So it's what you would expect from a heavy Lacerda game. It's going to take about the 2.5 to 3 hour mark, and it's going to be a heavy brain burner. On that note, going on to ease of play, this is where things take a bit of a downwards turn for this game. It's when you are in the game, this will be fulfilling, it will be engaging. It's in my collection. That gives you an alright spoiler alert as to whether I like it or not. But the biggest weakness of this game, the absolute biggest weakness, is that the rulebook was nicht gut. I don't know what the Japanese is for not good, but it's not a good rulebook. This has got a lot of complex rules, a lot of fiddly aspects to it, things that you've got to remember, things of like, oh, hang on, so if she goes there and assesses me, then I need to have this much. Okay, right, I built this car, so if I build that goes through there, gets me a couple of points, that then goes into my garage, unlocks this bonus. Right, how do the meetings work again? There's a lot of rules checking. And a lot of it just came down to the fact that the rulebook just frankly wasn't very good. Stronghold games have a little bit of a history with rulebooks, but it has been improved in recent months and years by Vital Lacerda actually putting up a geek list for the actual rulebook online. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe some people on Board Game Geek have come up with unofficial rulebooks for this game, or rewritten it in their own manner, or done something and like come up with a lot of player aids. So this is not a game I recommend that you grab, this edition anyway, for the rulebook. This is one of the biggest things that Kanban EV needs to fix. From what I know, it has been fixed. Paul Grogan himself has been involved with this, as well as other people, and that's all. I mean, come on. Gallerist on Mars? Yeah, come on. That's what I need to hear. His involvement on the rulebook means, dear God, get it right. But with this, you are going to be struggling to remember a lot of the rules because it is not the best written one. And that means during the game, there's going to be a lot of rules checking. You're going to be like constantly having to remember how to play this game every time you play it, because it's kind of got that Robinson Crusoe-itis like condition where if you don't play this game regularly, and I mean like every week, you're going to run the risk of forgetting how to play this game fairly often. Every time I go back into Robinson Crusoe, I have to remind myself how to play the game because I don't play it every week. Same goes for this. I played it at HandyCon back in Jan, and it had been a good year or so before I'd played it before, and I was like, oh my God, I've forgotten most of this game. And it started clicking once I got back into it, but it just meant teaching it was a bit more problematic than I gave itself credit for, and the game took a good 3 hours with 4 of us, so it's just one of those things. Now, in terms of the, playing the game, once you know what you're doing, things tend to flow reasonably well. The iconography is not complicated. A car is this, and the seats and the textbooks and that. It's pretty easy to understand the iconography, but the board can get quite busy. It's quite a busy board. There's a lot going on in the pictures. I mean, the artwork's cool, but it does mean that you kind of have to sort of go, oh wait, that's that department, that's that department, that's that department, yeah, and understand how each one works. Because each one's got its own set of rules, its own academic track, and of course, you're trying to do this with the goals. This is not a pick up and play game under any stretch of the imagination. This is certainly not even the easiest of Lacerda games. Honestly, if you want to get into Lacerda games as an introduction measure, people do say Escape Plan, because technically that is the easier of the Eagle Gryphon ones, but it's also one of the worst games in his lineup. So you want my advice, go get Gallerist. Gallerist is easily, in my opinion, the easiest and best of his lineup. And if you want like the intro to Lacerda, the Gallerist, I believe, is the way to go. Although, when Kanban EV comes out, you might be able to consider that depending on how well they do with the rulebook. But I can't see it being easier to grasp than Gallerist. I just can't, so that would be my recommendation. So with that hurdle aside, tactics and strategy-wise, this is where the rating shoots back up. It's like, duration is like in the middle, and then it goes to like -3 on ease of play, and then it shoots back up for tactics and strategy, because this is a good, heavy, meaty game. And it's really cool having to dodge the boss. I mean, I'll get onto theme later, but having to manipulate, right, hang on a minute, if 2 of us are in that department, Sandra will skip over us and go over to there. But the timing of when the actions happen is very critical here, because it resolves, there's a player order set for when the players act, but the resolution of the departments is done from left to right, and you sort of think, well, hang on a minute, I need to get in that department, but green is not going to move until after me, which means I can't go there. Oh, crying out loud. And so you're thinking, well, I could go to that department because it will block off Sandra, but wait, then yellow's going to have to move somewhere, which means Sandra's going to visit there, and oh yeah, there's quite a bit burning your brain in times. But even with that being said, the idea that you've got to be efficient with your actions, because there's not a lot of actions in this game, in terms of like action to time ratio, but you need to be efficient. And you've got to think, right, well, I need the designs, right, I need the parts, okay, so these parts are what I need. Right, well, I could assemble some cars, okay, so that will get me some points, and also push out the certain types of cars, like the sport cars, the super minis, whatever that I need. And then, right, well, there's some on the racetrack down there, so if I go and test the brakes on that one, and that can get me some points and bonus for this goal that I'm doing. And it's a lot. I mean, cross-eyed is something that you might go, because the wealth of options of what you can do in this game are plentiful. It is really hard to tell how to do well, though, apart from the fact that your recommendation is get those goals, because the goals will give you a lot of points. But then there's ways to earn points outside of the meetings. And of course, there's the academic tracks to bear in mind, because each department has a secondary ability that you can unlock if you train up in the various departments. Not to mention, when me and Sandra comes along, she will deliberately finger point at whoever is on me mode anyway. She will finger point at whoever has studied the least. So it's not a case that you have to max out the track. You don't even have to fulfill the requirement of a department. You just have to be more academically studied than the person below you. So it's kind of a weird way of doing it, but yeah, she likes to pick on the stupid, it seems. So be careful about like dodging her, but it works. There's just so much to consider, and I'll talk more about this in a minute, but the theme is interwoven so well that a lot of it becomes like, yes, I get it. This is what I need to do. This is how I need to do well. The goals are varied, and in the management meetings, you not only have public goals, but you also have secret goals. One of which you can kind of retain as a private goal, but then the others you have to put down to unlock for other players. So you end up like, right, well, I know I can get this goal. I'm aiming for those, but then so's Red. Red's aiming for that goal as well. I need to make certain I get that goal because it's diminishing returns for points before Red does. Now, I've got this one in my hand. So this one requires me to have a bunch of green cars, for example, the 4x4s. And, wait a minute, they've also got a bunch of 4x4s. If I put this down too early in the meeting, they're going to nab it. So wait a bit, just claim some of the other meetings or pass, hope that no one else passes, oh great, we're still going, you've run out of seats, good, now I play the goal. There's a lot of this stuff you've got to consider. It will burn your brain cells, but in a good way. This one really does feel, even though it's like a Stronghold Games version of a Lacerda game, this does feel like Lacerda's work. You can just tell it's got his watermarks all over it, and if they just replicate this in EV, then solid, you're already off to a good start. Now, going on to aesthetics, the aesthetics in this game are pretty decent. I mean, obviously, when the Eagle Gryphon version comes out, they're going to be light years ahead of what this does. But, well, that depends on the board. I think the board is going to be the biggest aspect of EV, and the whole white, stark look that it's got could be cool. I don't know. But this board, in the driver's edition anyway, is kind of a double-edged sword, because it gives you two sides to it. It gives you the original side, which is pretty busy. It's certainly like got a lot going on in it. I mean, that's just two of the departments, and already you can see there's quite a lot on that board. But then weirdly, the driver's edition gave you a monochrome version where everything kind of looks a bit purple. I thought it was meant to be like grey, but it seems more purple, and the idea is that you're supposed to be able to easily see what the departments are. But it then makes everything look a bit naff. So you want the original side of the board. Of course, you have to now accept that the graphic design is a little bit busy on the sense. But the artwork is decent. I mean, it looks like a car factory. The cars look like they're cars. And you do have a lot of cool pieces in the game. Now, storage-wise, when was the last time you saw Stronghold Games with a decent insert? This one has a lot of tokens and a lot of moving parts. You need to bag a lot of this stuff up. And I recommend, if you get this version, a Play-No box or something to this effect to store the wooden pieces, because without this, I'd be lost to try and arrange this game. But you've got a lot of cool stuff in here. I mean, you've got a lot of tile tokens, good thick tokens. You've got cubes. Well, you know, you've got a cube something here. You've got the cars, different wooden sculpted cars, at least in the driver's edition, but I don't think you can get the original version now, so I think the driver's edition is the only one you can get at the moment. And these are cool car wooden pieces, you know, it's a car meeple, effectively. And, you know, on top of that, you've got cards, you've got the player boards. This is quite a bit of a table hog when you get down to it, although, yeah, I would have liked a more solid board, but then this is in the old days of Stronghold Games. So, aesthetics-wise, it's pretty pleasing, but just quite busy. There's a lot of colour, there's a lot of like good things to see, and there's a lot of cool pieces to manipulate, but the graphic design is the hardest bit to kind of gauge what's going on, and it does get in the way of a lot of newer players to the game. I've gotten used to it personally, but you have to accept, yeah, it's a bit of a learning curve. So then going on to Immersion of theme, this is where that rating climbs back up again for me. I love this theme of making cars in a car factory. Already that theme sings to me, but the mechanics in this, much like the other Vital Lacerda games, are they're interwoven so well here. And it's one of the reasons I love this game. This is my second favourite Vital Lacerda game, and a lot of it comes down to that theme, because everything you do mechanically in the game makes sense from a thematic perspective. Yes, the rulebook and the ease of play does make it a little bit fiddly to fully get to grips with, but you understand that, right, well, what's the stages of building a car? Design it, get the parts, assemble it, test it. Makes sense. But everything you're doing with dodging Sandra, I mean, everybody's had that boss that they just want to smack.
Subtle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, okay, maybe not that hard, but slap. There you go, like Batman slap. Because everyone's had that sort of mean boss, and believe me, I have as well. And dodging her feels thematic. You know, you've got that boss, she's in a bad mood, and she's just coasting from department to department, looking for someone to prey on. We've had those in the past. But even then, everything else in this, where you're training up in the different departments, like you're like, you know what, I've got some spare hours here, I don't need to assemble a car, but I really want to get certified here, so I'm going to sit down and hit the textbooks. Feels like my office job. I'm an accountant. So yes, I'm doing accounts and tax returns for people like all the time, a tax accountant, but occasionally I have to get study done, I have to do research. I have to make certain that my knowledge is kept up to date, and that involves me doing online webinars and seminars. So it feels just like a typical office job. But everything just makes sense. Even the fact that the scoring phase is technically a meeting. It's the management meeting. And it's not just like, oh, everybody just get out their objectives and see who does what. No, there's the turn aspect of everyone's speaking up about a particular goal. And if you speak up about it first, you get more potential points than the person who speaks up after you. That makes sense, because once they've heard it, they've heard it. it hasn't got the same impact. It's kind of like someone going, I've made 3 limousines this week and it's been fantastic. And then you come along and go, well, I've made some limousines too. You just don't get that kind of respect. You don't have to worry about things like salaries and stuff like that in this game, which is good. That'd be overcomplicating it too much. But the theme is just really strong. And because you've got all these options, because you've got to think long term, you're engaged even when it is not your turn. There'll be some downtime a little bit, depending on how people figure things out. But to be honest, you just have to know which department you move this one worker to. That's it. Resolving the action is not that difficult once you know where you're going. So as soon as you make that initial hurdle, you're kind of done. And in a 4-player, the game doesn't scale with like spaces. So with 4 players, some of them are going to be blocked anyway. So you've only got so many options to go for. So it doesn't usually take even the new player too long to figure it out, as long as they're not trying to min-max their game, in which case, yeah, go away. But yeah, I mean, I love this one for its theme. There are other car making games as well. Automania is a simpler version where you make cars every round. This one is more, you make cars as you go through the game, but it's not quite as bad as some other ones. I can't think of like some heavier ones where it's like you make one car by the end of the game, but you've got to go through all these hoops in order to get to that stage. No, here, you do make cars. And even then, sometimes you don't even make them. Sometimes I'm like, look, somebody else assembled the cars. As long as you're assembling what I need, I don't care. But I'm going to test out every single part here. Or I'm going to study in every single department and just be basically the book nerd. There's a lot of different paths you can go for, and each one just feels very thematic. Really does feel like you're running a car factory. Strong thematic connection. Hopefully the Eagle Gryphon version does not lose sight of this, because it's one of its selling points. And then finally, I was about to say duration. What would that be? DTAD? DTID? That's not going to work. No, longevity. This one doesn't have a huge amount of replay value in the objective cards because, you know, you'll see different ones turn up and there's a final objective tile. Yeah, that changes what you might aim for, but it doesn't change the gameplay that dramatically. Where the replay value for this one comes in is just the fact that A, you probably won't be playing it that often, but B, the appeal of that thematic integration keeps drawing me back. Because, yeah, you could argue, well, the board doesn't change a great deal, it's just different goals, you know, but there's a lot of different paths to victory I can take. The efficiency, like, puzzle of trying to solve, like, try and get what you're doing done while dodging Sandra. You can play her in 2 different modes, so there's some extra value there. If you don't want to play her on mean mode and you think it's too punishing, play her on the easy mode. One slight warning though, you can exploit her a bit too easy on easy mode. They're fixing this in Kanban EB, so I would suggest looking on Board Game Geek for the variant for Nice Sandra before playing Nice Sandra, because it's a simple addition, but it basically just limits the ability to exploit her. Recommendation, alright? Because unfortunately, that hasn't been updated in this particular rulebook. So it really comes down to your enjoyment of the game in terms of its replay value. But then the same could be said for things like the other Vital Lacerda games. They're not replayable because of like the variety in the board setup and that. Although there's a couple that don't do too bad in that. They're replayable because thematically they're just so interesting and they draw me back. I've said it again, this might as well be Luke's Law, you know. Good mechanics will make me enjoy a game. A good theme will bring me back for the second go. And that's what happens here. The mechanics in this are already good. But if it had some boring trade in the Mediterranean theme, I probably wouldn't even look at it twice. If this was about building trains, I probably wouldn't even look at it twice. But building a car factory and the fact that the theme is not only interesting, but interwoven so well, keeps me coming back for more. Even though I wish I could play it a lot more often than I do, but with Kanban now on Tabletopia, maybe that might change, you know, while I'm waiting for the retail version of the reprint. So it is a really cool game, but it's not going to be for everybody. This is definitely one that is for a Vital Lacerda fan more than anything else. Certainly not to be your first point of entry into Vital Lacerda games. It's going to be hard, it's going to test your brain, and the learning curve, if you get this particular version, is going to be a bit of a climb. You're just going to have to wait and see. So my final word on Kanban Automotive Revolution is that this is a really meaty and really good fun strategic Euro game with a theme that is not only interesting, it is also so well woven into the mechanics that it creates such an immersive experience. It is, however, let down by a lackluster rulebook and a steep learning curve that requires you to locate online alternative resources in order to really get to grips with the game. So that is really going to be the way it's down to it. If you're willing to wait until Kanban EV comes out with an upgraded rulebook and a different aesthetic, then by all means, wait, be patient. It's not like there's not enough games out there. But if you're able to pick up a decent, not too expensive copy of this one, you will still get that same enjoyable experience. You're just going to have to maybe devote a little bit more time investment in order to really get to grips with it. But for me, my rating of this has not changed since the first time I saw it. It is a 9 out of 10 for me. I love it. It's such a solid game. It is my second favorite Vital Lacerda game. It's just, if it wasn't such a bugbear to try and remember the rules and get to grips with it, it would be a 10 out of 10. So I'm hoping that when Kanban EV comes out, and you can bet I will try and get a review of that when it does, just to talk about at least the changes from it. I'm not going to review the entire game, not again. I will probably do like a comparison video. But yeah, I can't wait for it. Can Kanban EV make it a 10 out of 10 if they sort the rulebook out and make it a good, not take out the meat of the game, but just make it a more streamlined experience for learning it, then great. Make it smoother, make it more elegant, and you will get a 10 out of 10 for me for this game. So that's it for me. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. No idea what I'm reviewing next because I'm going to have to look to the community for some ideas. But for now, I will certainly get round to doing those shelf-by-shelf reviews. I've been waiting for a certain component to come in the post, and hopefully it will come in the post soon if I haven't had it already, which will allow me to get those videos up and running. But on top of that, I also have some top 10s in mind, so perhaps you'll see an influx in top 10s throughout April. I've got a couple of weeks off work as of next week, as I'm recording this, the 2nd of April. So next week, for 2 weeks, I'm off work, which should give me a lot more time in the day to record some top 10 videos and just generally chill a bit. Play some solo games and just have some fun. I kind of could do with a break. It sucks that I can't go anywhere. I wanted to go up to Yorkshire and tackle the Three Peaks for April. I wanted to spend a week up there, and it's just like, stupid COVID virus. But that's the way it has to be. But I'll take a break off work as a consolation prize. It will give me something to do. Not to mention it sucks that for my birthday I'm kind of stuck here as well, but that's just the way it is. So I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. Stay safe, stay indoors, do what's necessary, and remember, it's only a game. Take care, and I'll see you guys soon.